And joining us now here in studio is Ontario's Minister of Transportation, Kathleen Wynne, the MPP for Don Valley West, and welcome back. Your first time in this portfolio. I think you were Education Minister last time you were here.
I was.
I can't keep track. Let's go through some of the plans that you've got on the books right now, and then we'll talk. So, Michael, to that end, the Ontario government and the City of Toronto are undertaking some major public transit expansions, and here we go. The Government of Ontario will build 25 kilometres of light rail on Eglinton Avenue in the middle of Toronto, from Black Creek Drive to the Scarborough City Centre. City of Toronto will expand the Shepherd subway line 13 kilometres from Downsview Station to the Scarborough City Centre. There's a rapid bus line which will connect the to-be-built Finch West subway station to Humber College. And your government, Ms. Wynne, contributing $8.4 billion to this transit plan. Now, just to put a little more flesh on this bone, let's try to visualize how this is going to look. Here is the Toronto Transit Commission today. That's what the subway system looks like. And if we kind of dissolve to the next shot, here's what the Government of Ontario and the City of Toronto have got plans for over the next, how many years? Lots of years. X number of years. To
2020.
2020. Okay, first question, easy. Why do this?
We are behind in our transit building. That's the reality. We haven't made serious, and when I say we, I mean collectively, the Province of Ontario, City of Toronto, all of us, we haven't made significant investments in transit really in a generation. So this $8.4 billion, and we've already put $3.7 billion into the City of Toronto for transit, but this $8 billion plus investment is the biggest investment in a generation. And you know, you just have to look at the congestion in the city, Steve, and you know that we need these lines built.
Okay, I guess the first thing that had people's eyebrows rising was the province says it's going to do the Eglinton line, and then the city by itself says it's going to do the Shepherd business. And I guess some people are wondering, how come you guys aren't getting together on this?
So you have to look at the genesis of this. There was a whole conversation that happened under the previous administration with the Province of Ontario. So before
David Miller.
Yeah, David Miller. We worked with the city. The current mayor during his campaign made it very clear that he had different ideas for transit in the city. When he was elected, we knew we needed to have a conversation with him, and we needed to come to an agreement, because what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to be a Minister of Transportation who, like a previous Minister of Transportation under another government, actually dug a hole and filled it in. You know, I didn't want to be in that situation.
I hear you. Let's fill in the history here for those who don't remember, because I guess it was the Ray government in the 1990s that decided to dig some holes and put some subways into the city, and then the Harris government in its wisdom said we can't afford them, we got to fill up the holes.
1995-96, that hole got filled in, and I didn't want to be in a position where we had spent already $130 million getting ready for doing the building, and then we would waste that. So we immediately that the new mayor was elected, our staff started to talk, the Metrolink staff worked with them, and we've come up with a plan that I think will serve the people of Toronto very well.
Do you like Marcus G. in the Globe and Mail?
I do like Marcus G.
Okay.
Smart man.
Here's what he's got to write on this issue. In effect, the City of Toronto is offering to go it alone on a hugely costly mega project. How can the Fords, this is the mayor and his brother who's on council, saddle the city with such a burden? Easy, they say. We'll get the private sector to build it. But the Ford scheme for persuading private companies to get on board is risky and untested. What they are talking about is using the land development around new subway stations to rake in higher fees from developers and higher property taxes from residents and businesses. Before they invested billions of dollars in something as complex as a subway, private companies would demand to know that they're going to at least make their money back. What if developers aren't keen on building in the suburbs through which much of the new subway would run? What if the condos and office towers that are supposed to sprout up never do, or don't come for years, even decades? On much of the Bloor-Danforth subway line, after all, they never have. Question, how confident are you that the city's actually going to be able to do its share of this project?
So, Steve, in our conversations with the mayor's office and with the mayor, we made it very clear that we had some principles. We're bringing $8.4 billion to the table. We said, here are our principles. we want to get the Eglinton line built because that's the important regional line. We don't have any more money, and we want to get moving on this. So in order to do that, this is the arrangement that we have come up with. It really is now up to the mayor and his council to have this conversation with the city. That's really up to him. And I'm a strong believer in local democracy. I really believe that when a member is, or a mayor is elected into an office, he has that position, and so we need to have a conversation, different levels of government, and collaborate with each other, because citizens want that to happen.
I hear you, but you know that if this doesn't work out financially the way they thought or hoped it would, they're going to be coming cap in hand to either your government or whoever else is down, whatever happens in October, saying we need more money. And what are you going to do then?
Well, first of all, I can't speculate on whether that will happen or not. I really can't, because
done it already.
the mayor's been very clear that he wants to build this line, and he's got an idea of how he's going to do it. And I think the other thing is we have to be willing to let the city try to do what it wants to do. And the councillors are going to have to work with the mayor on that.
Yeah, but you represent the city as well.
Yeah, I do.
At a different level
Absolutely.
of government, but you do.
And I do, and that's why we want to get the Eglinton and the Scarborough line, the Scarborough Crosstown line built. It was my responsibility to make sure that that important piece of transit got built, and that's my responsibility as a Minister of Transportation, but it's also my responsibility as an MPP in Toronto.
Okay, have a look over my shoulder again at the next graphic we're going to show. Michael, you want to bring this up? Here's another version. We're calling this another version of the TTC. The Transit City proposal, which, as you point out, was the previous one by the previous mayoralty administration, that's in the black. That's not happening now. You got TTC expansion plans in blue, and the current subways there in red. And the province is going to take money it was devoting to 4 above-ground light rail transit lines, and they're going to use all of it for 1 underground LRT. Can you tell me whether you think this is better?
So I just want to correct one piece.
Okay.
So the Eglinton Scarborough Crosstown is not all underground, because the Eglinton piece is, but the piece up to the Scarborough Town Centre is above ground.
Quite correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not going to pass judgment on whether it's a better.
Oh, go ahead. Pass judgment.
No, I know I'm not going to, because honestly, there are lots of debates within the transportation world about whether that line across Eglinton should have been underground anyway. So, as I said to you earlier, I'm not a transportation engineer, so I'm not going to get into that debate. What I know, Steve, is that in terms of our practical ability to deliver this transit project, we needed to work with the city, and the mayor was very clear that he wanted to see more underground on that crosstown. Now, the above ground piece up to the Scarborough Town Centre, I think that's a really good saw-off. I think that's a good use of money. And as I say, the Finch Bus Rapid Transit, which is part of that design, diagram that you showed, that will again be a discussion that the city will have to have, whether that meets the needs of the people in the West End or not. But our priority was to get that Eglinton line built, because that line has been congested for more than a decade, and it needs to be relieved. Okay,
let me go off on a tangent here from something, it's still public transit oriented, but it's not exactly on your desk. The Ontario legislature passed legislation, I guess not too long ago, making the Toronto Transit Commission an essential service.
Right.
They can't strike anymore. Toronto City Council asked you to do it, and you did it. Is this a good idea?
So the city had asked some time ago if they were to request the TTC being made an essential service would be passed legislation. The Premier said he'd be open to considering that. The Mayor was elected. The Council passed this, and so we did it. It was a very popular movement. People were very keen on getting this legislation in place. 1.5 million riders a day use the TTC, or 1.5 million rides. And if the TTC is not functioning, the city grinds to a halt. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. So I think if there's a way to make sure that people get their needs met in terms of commuting, that's a good thing. So
these things always end up costing more in the end, though. You know that, right?
Well,
because if they can't agree, it goes to arbitration, and the arbitrators almost always favor the employees.
Yeah. So of 6,000 settlements that have been in place since 2000, 80% of those, under similar circumstances, 80% of those have not gone to arbitration. So my hope is that this legislation will allow for a better working relationship between the the union and the city, and that we won't have to see those arbitrations.
That's your hope, but what's your realistic expectation? Which often isn't the same as hope.
Yeah, well, there's a risk. There's absolutely a risk that, that you have that situation where there's an arbitration and the costs go up. But the City Council and the Mayor went into that with their eyes wide open. They knew that, and they made this decision. And people in the city wanted this.
My hunch is the people watching us in Ottawa right now will want me to ask about OC Transpo, which was on strike for 51 days in 2008 and 2009 in the middle of winter, and there was no back-to-work legislation passed by the province of Ontario in that. Should we declare OC Transpo an essential service?
Well, and that's one of the questions that came up when this whole discussion of essential service arose, because if it's good for Toronto, is it not good for other parts of the province?
Right.
We haven't been asked by any municipalities, any other municipalities, to go down this road. I'm not going to speculate on whether others would. There's a federal responsibility in the Ottawa situation as well. But, you know, obviously we have to take it case by case. The Toronto transit system, I think you'll agree, is qualitatively and quantitatively different than other transportation systems in the province.
In the country.
Huge.
In the country. It's bigger than everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about, we're calling this next segment of our conversation here, the man with the plan. Rob Ford is, well, he's a force. And he has said that if you guys don't play ball with him in a way that he would like to see, he will, quote, sick Ford Nation on your government. And I wonder how influential that, it's a threat, let's call it what it is, how influential that threat is on your decision-making provincially.
You know, it's just not the way we do politics. I mean, the reality is that we work with different levels of government. We work with the people who are elected officials in the same way that we have worked with the Harper government and will continue to work with the Harper government. I think that the political stripe has less to do with policy decisions than what people need and what are the best in the best interests of Ontarians. And so when we look at the transit decisions that we've made, we look at the education decisions we've made, you know, we have really tried to assess what is in the best interest and make decisions based on that. Those politics of, I don't know whether it's fear or division or whatever it is, you just can't take those into account when you're making policy decisions for people.
Well, I hear you, but and that's the policy answer, but the political answer is you're going to the polls in October, and he's a guy who apparently can move a lot of votes. Do you not have to take that into account when you make decisions?
But Steve, we've got to run our own race, you know. I'm a sprinter, but I ran the 440, and you can't, you do have time to look over your shoulder, but you shouldn't. What you should do is you should look at where you're going and make the decisions based on how you want to get there.
Okay, as is the tradition on this program, we've talked, you know, 90% policy, but then I like to save 10% for politics.
Wasn't that just politics we were talking?
No, actually, that was policy. Okay, here we go. The most astonishing election probably of yours and my lifetime took place.
Absolutely.
On May the 2nd. And I guess the conventional wisdom is that when it's a Conservative government in Ottawa, it's actually helpful to Liberals in Ontario. Except that the Liberal brand took you-know-what kind of a kicking in this last election campaign. So what are you guys thinking at Queen's Park now in Liberal Party circles?
Well, again, I mean, I sort of go back to my last comment. We have to continue to govern. We have to continue to make those policy decisions that we were just talking about. And, you know, I'm going to run my election campaign in the same way that I would have run it before the federal election. You know, I've got to talk to as many people as I can. I've got to talk about what we've been doing and share a vision for what we need to do going forward. Because although we've made a lot of good starts in education and healthcare, there's a ton more to do in this province. And just in my own portfolio, we've got baby boom infrastructure all over this province. There's a lot of work that has to be done. We've made billions of dollars of investment, but we got to build those old bones up in our province,
but
you know?
Does the volatility of the electorate, which they demonstrated in spades on May the 2nd, does that concern you? You're a two-term government.
You know, I think that we need to talk to people about what they're thinking. And I think that our party and our government has been very good at that. I think we're going to continue to be good at it. And am I anxious or nervous? You know, the day that I found out that I was going to be running against the leader of the opposition in 2007,
John Tory.
That's right, people wrote me off. So, I mean, I've been through difficult elections, and I think that obviously every election is a challenge, and we've got a great story story to tell, and we're going to tell it.
The advantage, I guess, you have now is that your riding and the federal riding is the same riding,
It's
right?
the same riding.
The boundaries are the same.
Absolutely.
So did you learn anything? Your riding went conservative on May 2nd.
It did. It did.
For the first time since 1988. Been a long time since those ridings went blue. Did you learn anything from that you can apply this fall?
Well, my riding, you know, I ran against a Tory conservative, or a Tory cabinet minister in 2003. So the riding that I represent provincially hasn't been Liberal for that long. So I'm always running hard in my riding.
Federally, it was, you know, it was always red.
Yeah, John Godfrey was there, but you know, I believe that, as I said, we have to do everything that we can to convince people that what we've been doing has been in their best interest for the last 8 years. I really believe it has been. I believe that the gains we've made, you know, we've got a school system that's acknowledged around the world to be one of the best. We've got a healthcare system that has increased its quality over the last 8 years, and we're going to continue to do those things. So those are the things that really matter to people on the ground, and I believe that that will prevail in the fall because of that.
Okay. Kathleen Wynne, always
Thanks.
appreciate your visits to TVO. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Steve.